Today, we're going to talk about a guy who didn't just predict the future, he actually wrote the code for it. His name is John McCarthy, and his ideas, well, they're so fundamental, they're basically the bedrock of the digital world we all live in. I mean, it's a wild question, right? Sounds like something straight out of a sci-fi movie. But it all started with a simple but really bold proposal from a small group of scientists. And you guessed it, one man was right at the heart of it all. And there he is. Now, you hear names like Alan Turing, and yeah, John McCarthy is right up there with them, one of the original founding fathers of artificial intelligence. But honestly, even a title as big as that, it barely scratches the surface of what he actually did. So, to really get a handle on his genius, we've got to rewind. We're going back to the very beginning, a time when the biggest challenge wasn't even building a smart machine. It was just figuring out what that even meant. You have to remember, before McCarthy came along, this idea of a thinking machine was just kind of floating around. It was super abstract, totally unorganized. It was a cool idea, for sure, but there was no field of study, no community, and maybe most importantly, no name for it. And this is his first stroke of genius. He and his colleagues were putting together a proposal for a summer workshop at Dartmouth College, and they needed a name for this brand new, crazy ambitious field. The term they came up with? Artificial intelligence. Just by giving it a name, they gave it an identity. They gave people something to rally around, to research, to fund. He literally named the revolution. And that 1956 Dartmouth Workshop, you see it right there in the middle of the timeline, that was basically the starting gun. That's when AI became a formal, official discipline. It took all these amazing theoretical ideas, like from Alan Turing, and gave them a home, a goal, and a name. It really set the stage for, well, everything that's happened since. Okay, so you've just defined this whole new field dedicated to making machines think. That's awesome, but that immediately creates a brand new, massive problem. What language do you even use to program a thought? So what did McCarthy do? Well, his answer was to invent a whole new language from the ground up. He called it Lisp, for list processing. And look, this wasn't just another language for crunching numbers. Lisp was designed to handle abstract ideas, symbols, the building blocks of thought. It was perfect for it, and it became the go-to language for AI research for decades. This slide nails the challenge perfectly. On the left, you've got human language. It's messy, it's emotional, context is everything. Then on the right, you've got Lisp, which is built on pure, crystal-clear logic. McCarthy essentially created a bridge, a way to translate our messy, abstract human ideas into a language a machine could finally understand and process. But here we have a classic case of a solution creating a whole new problem. Lisp was so good at creating and processing data that the early computers, which had, tiny amounts of memory, would just get clogged up with leftover, unused bits of information. Basically, digital junk. McCarthy's solution was just so elegant. He invented something called garbage collection. It's pretty much what it sounds like. As a program runs, it creates all this data garbage. Well, the garbage collector is like this automatic process that just sweeps through, finds all that useless data, and clears it out, freeing up precious memory. This one invention is now a fundamental part of almost every single modern programming language we use today. It's huge. And you can see how this is all building, one innovation on top of another. By the early 60s, computers were getting really powerful, but they had this massive bottleneck. Only one person could use one machine at a time. That's right, one. Just one person. You had one massive, incredibly expensive, room-sized computer, and it could only serve one single user at a time. Can you imagine the lines, the inefficiency? It was a huge barrier to making any real progress. So McCarthy's solution was another total game changer. He called it time sharing. The basic idea was to have a central computer juggle requests from lots of different users so quickly, so incredibly fast, that it gave each person the illusion that they had the entire machine all to themselves. And this is the real kicker. Just listen to this quote from his colleague Lester Ernest. That idea of sharing a central computer's resources among many users, we have a name for that today. We call it cloud computing. John McCarthy started it back in the early 1960s. He was just so far ahead of his time, it's almost unbelievable. As early as 1961, he gave a speech where he actually suggested that one day, Computing power could be bought and sold just like a utility, like water or electricity. He literally envisioned the entire business model for Amazon Web Services and Microsoft Azure more than 50 years before they took over the world. So when you start to put all these pieces together, his legacy is it's staggering. But beyond these incredible inventions, who was the man behind the code? I mean, just think about the sheer scale of these contributions. Any one of these four things would be a career-defining achievement for anyone. Naming the entire field of AI, creating its first real language, inventing a core function for memory, and laying the groundwork for the cloud. McCarthy did all of them. But for all his towering intellect, he was apparently really approachable. His students at MIT and later at Stanford, they didn't call him Professor McCarthy. They called him Uncle John. And he had a personality to match that. Get this? This was his personal motto he had it on his license plate cover. Do the arithmetic or be doomed to talk nonsense. It just perfectly captures his belief in logic, in rigor, and in cutting through all the noise with pure reason. He was a huge defender of free speech and critical thinking. In the end, all of his work was driven by this one core philosophy, that the processes of the human mind could be formalized, that they could be described by logic, and, ultimately, that they could be replicated inside a machine. Which leaves us with this one last kind of mind-bending thought, straight from his own writing. He argued that even a simple thermostat has beliefs. Think about it. It believes the room is too cold, it wants the room to be warmer, and so it takes an action to make that happen. Is that just a clever metaphor? Or did John McCarthy see some kind of fundamental truth about what intelligence really is? A truth that we're all still grappling with today?